Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So excited to have you in person because we were supposed to do this earlier in the week virtually. Mm-hmm. And then you were like, by the way, I'm coming to LA. And now you're in my living room.
Yeah, it all worked out.
It worked out perfectly. Okay, so tell us what you wore to pod today because obviously, again, we're on the same page.
Yeah. I'm always thinking about dressing other people and not as much about myself. This is an old Miu Miu shirt and just the colors are so fresh. So
I was going to say, I haven't seen that Miu Miu logo in a long time.
Yeah, it was I think it was like a couple years ago they did like a capsule. Yeah, with that logo.
What's this perfect black tank that you have on underneath?
Oh, I got this in Japan. I forgot the name of the brand. I'll have to tell you later. It's but yeah, I'm all about a perfect basic.
I'm going to Japan first time next month.
Okay, well, I will definitely let you know.
Please.
I
feel like you would have the best racks.
So much great shopping there. It's incredible. And actually, I was very excited to find out that there's Barney's in New York. I mean, in Japan.
Like Barney's New York?
Yeah, Barney's New York is in Japan.
Why?
I think someone must have bought the license and is able to produce it there, but they have brick and mortar stores. And in the stores, they have the Barney's brand, which I always loved. And it's really affordable. Well, the dollar was high when I was there a year ago. Let's see what happens with the tariffs.
Oh my, okay. I'm adding that to my list.
Yeah.
I miss Barney's.
Yeah, me too. It was a big part of my life.
Even the one here, like I miss going to Barney's Greengrass.
Me too.
Yeah.
It was like, I would go to Barney's and I would be there for half a day. And now, we have so few sort of experiential brick and mortar stores like that. Opening ceremony closed and, we've got like, Bergdorf's in New York, but Printemps just opened in New York downtown.
Have you been?
Yes, I went the other night. It's great. The boys who do Coperni, Arnaud and Sebastian, have a collection they did with Disney that's out now, and they did an event, and I went to support them and saw the new store, and it's incredible. It feels like those days of going shopping and having like a really nice experience. I think there is a restaurant adjacent. I didn't see the restaurant, but there's a bar in the shopping area, which I thought is really smart.
Love that.
Yeah.
Also, the shoe room looks crazy.
Oh, yeah. And they have, now they should be paying me to promote, but they have a room that is all vintage and it's like very specialized high-end vintage. And they have someone on staff who you can make an appointment with to bring your vintage to rework it. So if you, have like old pieces that, have some sort of sentimental value to you or, they're actually worth something, collectibles, but they just don't fit right, or maybe they're too conservative or, whatever it is that's just not working for you, you can go get a consultation and alterations to upcycle it to whatever the piece is.
That's genius.
I know. So smart. And I think more companies should do that.
How do you get dressed every day? I know this morning you said you wanted spring, but are you getting dressed every day like excited about a feeling, or are you always basing it around a piece?
It's usually more about a place. I don't think my wardrobe changes too much from New York to LA, but I definitely wore more black in New York. Like upstate, I have a specific wardrobe that I don't necessarily wear anywhere else.
Like what? Is it more like athleisure? Is it really laid back? I'm feeling like
it's definitely more jeans. It's definitely more casual. Yeah. And it's definitely more cozy. And yeah, so I think like when I'm in New York or LA, for example, or I'm traveling for work, I'm always thinking about like, who am I going to run into? And in New York, or upstate at least, in the country, if I'm going to run into a friend, they're going to be dressed casually. And if I was like dressed up in any way, it might feel a little, like too much. So yeah, I think for me, it's like I'm always sort of aware from a very young age of like what I consider to be appropriate. Although like I don't judge others, so anything goes. Right. I really don't. I think that's been like really important for me in my work too, is to like let people have the style that feels comfortable for them and not to judge how other people dress, which is weird to say because it's seemingly like a big part of my job that I would have, strong opinions about people's style.
How did you get your start in fashion?
Wow. Okay. So like, it depends how far back you want to go. I mean, I grew up with a mom who loves fashion and collected fashion magazines, and also would dress my sister and I up and take photos of us and in like different like settings. She was very into collecting Victorian clothes. So there was this like idea of like history and like a time past, and so I think that made me more conscious of like costume, and because it definitely felt more like costumes than like any kind of like modern looks that she would style us in. So essentially my mom was a stylist for us.
For you guys.
Yeah. And then my sister and I think didn't necessarily appreciate it, and it was sometimes very cringe for us.
Right.
But
what age did that stop?
I mean, there's like framed photographs of my sister and I in my mom's house from like the time my sister was like in college. I think by the time I was 18 and I moved to New York, I was less available to her, but my sister still lived in Virginia where we grew up. So yeah, there's like pictures of her like in her 20s, like with my mom dressing her.
Everyone's got their thing.
Yeah.
Everyone's
I mean, we
their
humored
thing.
her, and it gave her so much joy.
Right.
And amateur photographer, and and a love of costumes. So I think that's like what inspired me in the beginning. And then like looking at fashion magazines and understanding like, what a fashion editor was at an early age, like definitely while I was still in high school. And then moved to New York and wanted to work in film, but didn't know anyone in film, but started working at magazines because I was also interested in journalism, and then figured out what a stylist was. And this was the early days of that term being used. It just kind of all like was intuitive from there. I didn't really get my foot in the door with film until I had been working in fashion for about 5 years.
It's interesting. That kind of editorial to costume designer pipeline is very unique. How did that happen for you? How did you go from one thing to another?
Well, I always thought it was possible, but there weren't, many examples of it. But Ariane Phillips was a really big inspiration for me. And, since then she's become a friend and a mentor. And I'm always so impressed with her and what she does. She's had her hand in almost like every area of costume and styling at this point, like even done opera and theater. And so, yeah, she was someone who showed me a path to be able to, have the courage to tell people like, that I was interested in both styling and costumes, and that it was possible. Because I think like definitely as a young person, it was more about focusing on one thing, and if you like diversified, people would be like confused like what it is you do, where that's not an issue now you can do anything and be your own brand, but at the time it was definitely more singular, and people weren't as open-minded to people doing lots of different things. But she like showed me the way before I ever met her. I call her like a chosen mentor because I would talk about her like I am now before I even ever met her. And also, I think in our culture, it has so much to do with precedent. Yeah. It's like if someone hasn't done something before, people aren't open-minded to it. And so that was super helpful that she was working for Italian Vogue. She was working with Madonna. She was working on films. She was doing all these things across like, these different industries and being successful at it. So it showed people like to be more open-minded about that. Yeah.
My brain keeps going back to this like lovely visual of you and your sister growing up in costumes to now having that be what you do.
Yeah. And I don't think I really realized that was the impetus until I put together the book with A24 about the costumes of Euphoria, and I was tasked with writing a lot of the copy in the book, and had never done anything like that before. And I love to write, and it wasn't like a scary thing to do, but definitely a learning curve. And then when I wrote the intro and I remember at first I wrote like something pretty short, and the editor came back to me, the editor who I was working with for the book, and asked for me to write a longer opening
Expand
piece.
on this.
Yeah, she was like, hey,
Expand on
she was
this
like, we want to know more. We want to know
yeah.
more. And that's when I started thinking about it and realized like, yeah, I really do have to credit my mom. Yeah.
I always ask this question for fashion roles because I think it differs for everything. But do you think somebody needs to go to school or get trained, quote unquote, to do what you do?
That's a good question. I mean, I find that for many careers, people don't really need to go to university anymore. Like, you know,
there's so many resources out there in the world.
Yeah.
Whether it's like watching YouTube or it's just a different world we're in.
I really feel for my friends who went to like NYU for 4 years and are still in debt. Yeah. You know, so many colleges are like so expensive, and you know, some of my friends like went to university for certain degrees and then aren't even using those degrees. Yeah. So I mean, I think, you know, the school of life is the most important one, and it's nice that the industries that I work in, fashion and film and TV, that you don't necessarily need a higher education to be able to be successful in those careers. So yeah, so I don't know. I don't think it's incredibly important, but I do think when it's a craft position, like if you, you know, I mean, you can definitely learn in the field, but I do think that there are certain jobs and careers that it's helpful to learn from, you know, teachers and professors who are in the field and you know, can share their knowledge, whether it's like, you know, like I have young friends who are like at Bard, and the professors there are actively working a lot of time in the field. Like Stephen Shore, the photographer, teaches photography there. Kelly Reichardt, filmmaker, teaches filmmaking there. So I think, you know, when you can find a school, a university that, you know, has teachers who are actually active in their field, I think that's very valuable.
I agree. I also agree with the school of life. I think in real life experiences, maybe being on set, interning for someone can sometimes be more valuable. I
mentioned Bard because it's right by where I live.
Yeah.
And I do really enjoy the idea of teaching. Like that's something I might be interested in later.
That would be so cool.
I did a course at Polymoda in Florence a couple years ago about styling and costumes, and I had the best time.
That would be amazing.
People. Yeah.
I'm not in school, but I would sign up for that class. Yeah, that would be so cool. I actually just heard that USC just launched a fashion curriculum.
Oh, great.
Which is great. I'd love to see more of it. There's not enough.
I think that's going to become more and more popular.
I agree.
Yeah.
Especially in LA where there's more happening here now.
Definitely.
Yeah. So what landed you on the set of Euphoria?
I was sent the pilot script, and I had never done TV before, and TV was getting more and more popular to do as you know, a job for costumes. And it, you know, that industry also is one where like if you haven't done the thing, people think maybe you can't do it, right? You know. So I thought, okay, here's an opportunity. I should just do this because I've never done TV, and who knows?
Make it till you make it.
Yeah, and
just figure it out.
I didn't really. I mean, I had seen Sam Levinson's film Assassination Nation, and my friend Rachel Danerbest, who used to work with me on films, who did Spring Breakers with me. She was the assistant costume designer, and then has gone on to do her own amazing work. She costume designed that film, and so I was familiar with him. But then even when I read the script, I'm Gen X, not to age myself, but I didn't really like know for sure, like, is this cool? Like, should I do this? And I sent it to some Gen Z friends, millennial friends, and they were like, yes, you got to do this. So yeah, so I came out to LA, and that was only like, you know, maybe like 3 to 5 weeks, and then had no idea what was going to happen because it hadn't been picked up yet. And then after HBO saw the pilot and it got picked up, I thought, okay, I'll do this. And then after first season, I was like, okay, I'm not coming back because it was like really intense. Yeah. And when I'm on that show, like I can't do anything else, right, really. And then after the success of first season, I thought, okay, I got to go back and do another season just to sort of like solidify, the look, like what I had to offer to the show. But yeah, for season 3, I've moved on.
Costume design to me is one of the most fascinating things. I, like you, had a very interesting relationship with costumes growing up. I was a dancer, and my favorite part of the entire process was putting on the costumes. It helped me become a totally different artist in those moments, and I would work so hard to get roles for the specific costumes. So costume design for me is just, it's a world that I really deeply admire. I'd love to know for you, what's the starting point? Like when you got on Euphoria, how did you begin to create the visual language for what that show would be?
That's a great question. I think it's a very intuitive process for me. I consider myself a very empathetic person. And I think that enables me to put myself in the place of the characters. It's interesting when you're costume designing for an ensemble, because if you're able to do that, like put yourself emotionally in the place of the characters to make decisions about what they would wear based on like actually like the feelings of the characters. You're living with a lot of different characters in your head. And I found that with Euphoria specifically, each character weirdly sort of represented some like aspect of like either a phase I went through or something I experienced or someone I knew well. So it was all very personal to me, each character. And I'd like to think that that's one of the reasons why when people watch season 1 and 2, that something like authentic came through. Even though the show is like very heightened visually and sort of like, we were world building in a way, as much as it relates to some people's experiences. I think, it definitely was like a heightened version. I often am told by actors what you expressed, which is that the first place they come is to the costume designer to do fittings, and oftentimes that's where they're learning about their characters, whether or not they've done like the back work to, think about all the sort of backstory about their character, or if they're relying on the director and the costume designer to fill in those details. It can be like highly collaborative, and that's really exciting to me. There are some actors who come in and just like want you to like, tell them everything, and haven't either had the time or haven't figured out like the backstory for the character that's not on the page that you need to sort of understand in order to play a character authentically. But that's really exciting for me, the sort of storytelling aspect. And like oftentimes I'm writing backstory in my mind for a character anecdotally that isn't on the page, just for myself so that I can believe it. So I like to think that as costume designers, most costume designers, they are acting as producers in a way. Oftentimes I'm called like a director whisperer or an actor whisperer, because there are so many times when something comes up with the character or part of the story or on set where I do have the ear of the actors, and I am able to like help either move a situation forward or predict something that might happen, with the storytelling, or a more nuanced way to either land a joke or, to express something emotionally for a character, through the costume. So yeah, I think it is a really exciting relationship with the actors as a costume designer, to be able to empower them and enable them to do their job the best they can. That's what I consider my first and foremost, to facilitate the director's vision, and then secondly, but also so important, to be able to make the actors feel as comfortable as possible to do their job the best they can.
How collaborative are we talking here? Because I'm thinking you know, say Zendaya comes up to set and she doesn't like what she's wearing for that day, but her scene is a moment where she's supposed to feel good.
Oh yeah, I have to listen to the actors every time. Even if it's rare that happens for me, but it definitely has in my career. And I always say to anyone who like is new to working on my team that you always have to have something in your back pocket. So you never know what's going to happen. Like even if costumes have been approved and you think everything's great and you know you've set the look and the actor is ready to go to set, they could have already traveled even to set, and then they get there and they, whether they've like blocked the scene or they're rehearsing the scene and they have an idea about like, or something just doesn't feel right all of a sudden. I rarely push back. If I push back, I think it's because I believe that I actually have done more of the homework and I can see a bigger picture for the storytelling, because occasionally like an actor, especially if they're super busy and they're coming in to a production that's already been underway and you know they're just figuring out the tone like on that day, and maybe they work like a couple days on a very longer production, and I have been there and I've been working on it and I understand something that maybe they don't about like the tone or their arc or you know whatever it is. That's the only time I'll really push back, if I feel like you know I'm actually going to help them be better and I'm going to help the story work better by pushing back. It's never an aesthetic thing really for me, because like I said, like they have to feel good.
What character for you was the hardest to crack?
I actually think it was Sydney Sweeney's character Cassie, and I've talked about this before. I like talked about it in the book I did with A24. I don't know, in the beginning I was like, who is she? Because I think like when I was talking about how I relate to the characters in different ways, like I didn't really relate to Cassie. Like I've never been Cassie. I've never dressed like Cassie. So Cassie for me was like a hard one. But then in trying to navigate deciding like who this character is, because you know in the beginning also like you know in communicating with the director I pull references and you know in you know sort of like thinking about like who can I reference for Cassie, I was looking at Instagram a lot and I was looking at like it girls of the moment, and then I thought like Cassie is looking at Instagram, Cassie's looking at these it girls of the moment. And so for me, Cassie from the beginning became someone who was like searching and sort of like trying on different ideas, that she, you know, really has this longing to be accepted and to be loved. And so, you know, it really made sense to me that at that age, you know, a lot of girls are, you know, looking at social media and trying on different versions of, you know, who they think they want to be. And so I realized like I was sort of lost about who Cassie was, because Cassie's kind of lost about who she is. And then it kind of clicked for me. And then from there I like knew how to move forward. But there was a minute where I was a little stumped about Cassie, yeah.
Which makes sense, because I think she is equally as stumped. Yeah. For me, the most iconic episode kind of moment was the spiral of Cassie when she was dressing like Maddie, trying to get Nate's attention, and then she ends up in that like Oklahoma style outfit in the bathroom. And actually I remember that scene coming on TV and me seeing every single character in the bathroom dressed so to them. That felt like an encore for me of just everyone being so typically themselves. And just Cassie in that moment. There was so much storytelling with what she was wearing. That whole episode, I think, was about what she was wearing. How did you develop basically a spiral through clothes?
Yeah. Definitely full fantasy, you know, aspect of like in, you know, trying to get in Cassie's head. And then, you know, this like progression of manicness. And then how I could work with hair and makeup to highlight that, because I think like, you know, in these beats where she's like getting ready in the morning for school, that for me, didn't have to necessarily have this like crescendo that was forced, because I had the hair and makeup team to help add layers to that. But the look in the hallway when she sees Maddie, that wasn't on the page. Like, that was something that I came up with. I love costume designing for comedy. It's really, I think, one of the most fun things for me, like to be able to like lean into that. And I'm always putting myself in the place of the audience. And that's, I think, super important throughout any kind of costume design, to like actually, it's like if you were writing and you're putting yourself in the place of the reader, but visually, to like think like, okay, how are we gonna, like, if there's like these beats where she's getting more and more manic and more desperate, the final beat, like how do we land that so that people understand that that's what was happening, and
the clothes land the joke.
Yeah. So I was really happy that Sam was into that idea, and the girls were excited about it, and that it worked, because it obviously became a meme, and
it was incredible.
And yeah, so like I love making those kinds of contributions, and that's one of the reasons why I'm definitely interested in doing more producing, to be able to be creatively involved beyond just the costumes. I think is really exciting. But yeah, that episode was so fun, and her Oklahoma look inspired by Dolly Parton was a fun one to build. She has really good instincts too, Sydney. She'll definitely let me know if there's like something that she feels like works or doesn't work. Yeah, she's great to collaborate with.
You've worked on so many sets, Spring Breakers, Euphoria. I wonder for you, is there a story that from working on set that has like resonated most with you? Maybe because it was the biggest challenge or the biggest thing that you've learned?
Well, I do feel like whenever I'm working with directors who see me as a collaborator and also trust me, that's such a huge gift. I think that's been the biggest thing for me, knowing that the difference. I have learned that when, like with filmmaking, when I am going to sign on to a project, if I love the script and I take a meeting, that I also have to interview the director in a way that if I am coming from a place of like, oh, I want a job, I want to do this, and it's not a two-way street, it can often feel later like one-sided and not like a true kind of collaboration that I hope to have. So I think part of what I focus on now when I meet with directors for the first time is, do I want to work with this person? Not just like, oh, do they like me? Do they like what I have to offer? Will they offer me the job? It's a two-way street. It's like, what do I have to consider, like, what do I think I have to bring to the table creatively? Do I want to tell this story? Is this director a collaborative type of director? I always tell young people who like ask me for career advice and stuff, just, I think it's so important to find your collaborators. That's like one of the most important things to do early on, to focus on that, to like find people who are like-minded, who can become collaborators, consistent collaborators who you can build with, and who respect you and will listen creatively and value you.
I love that.
Yeah.
Even now, I feel like in my career, there are so many people that I met in college that I still work with. Mm-hmm. And that's so special.
Absolutely.
Again, you worked on iconic sets. And I remember when Spring Breakers came out, that was the Halloween costume of the year. And when Euphoria came out, that was also the Halloween costume of the year. How do you feel about having built a costume almost that, for a show that has changed global trends?
It's so fun to be able to do something that is going to become a Halloween costume. Yeah. I think both times with Spring Breakers and with Euphoria, I didn't anticipate that for whatever reason. I think now, because it's happened several times, now I can anticipate it. And this project I just finished, there are several looks in the film where on set, like as a joke to my team and everyone on set, I would say out loud while they were on camera, "You're welcome, Halloween," because
you're like, I'm giving it to you on a silver platter.
Yeah, and
okay, I'm ready.
So fun. And like when I work with great directors, they make me better. So Dylan Meyer, who's a good friend, who just directed this film I worked on, The Wrong Girls. It was like one of the iconic looks for the two lead characters played by Kristen Stewart and Alia Shawkat. One of the looks that we did, it was her idea. Like it wasn't on the page. She like came to me and she was like, I think we should do. And so whenever I work with directors who have like a singular vision and who are, Dylan wrote the script, it's like loosely based on her experience with her best friend. And but yeah, when directors have like a strong vision and they bring it, then it makes me
you just
better.
Know what's happening. Yeah, I love that. So we were talking earlier, you're not doing season 3 of Euphoria. You have so many other projects going on. You just did The Wrong Girls and a few other producing projects, which I can't wait to see you produce.
Yeah, it's so fun to be involved from the beginning to develop a project. Producing's been such a joy because to have like the big picture in mind instead of just like the minutia of the costumes, and to be able to bring on costume designers who I really admire. It's been so exciting. Like Angelina Vito came onto a film that I associate produced for my friend Haley Benton Gates that won the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance.
Congrats!
Yeah, it's called Atropia. It's really like an amazing film. It was a big swing for Haley and it really paid off. That's
so exciting.
It's Callum Turner and Ali Shawkat, and I just can't wait for people to see it. But Angelina did amazing work on that film, and so yeah, to be able to like tap designers who I believe in, and it's just been really fun, and also just to develop stuff from the ground up.
You're working on The Wrong Girls, or you just wrapped The Wrong Girls, right?
We just wrapped The Wrong Girls. We shot
exciting.
In LA.
Fun. Oh my God. I love that.
Yeah, we started prep the week the fires happened, which was, really intense for everyone here. And, but, made it through and had an amazing shoot. And now Kristen and Dylan are getting married this weekend. So many big events for them as a couple. Kristen directed her first film, Chronology of Water, she's finishing the edit, so TBD when that will be released, but super exciting for her. And then Dylan just directed her first feature that she wrote and directed, so big year for them.
Fun. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine. I would love to hear from you what it's like working with Kristen on set, because she has such an incredible fashion identity already that like I would be like, just come as you are. Like, just tell me what you want to wear.
Well, the character she plays is loosely based on Dylan, and they have very similar style. But it's a fictional character. So when I first started, dreaming up what the girls were going to wear, I thought it was important for Frankie, is the character Kristen plays, for Frankie to not sort of mimic what Kristen wears in her daily life, because I didn't want her to look like Kristen. I wanted her to look like who Frankie should be. And also for the audience not to think I was being lazy. But it just worked out that like a lot of what Frankie wears does it fit into Kristen's wheelhouse, because it made sense. 'Cause Dylan, has a similar style. And then so we found that there wasn't a real need to think too much outside of the box just for the sake of that, because what really was right for the character was to sort of lean into that personal style that you see Kristen in. Yeah.
I mean, I love her style.
She's an icon. It's effortless and one of the kindest human beings I've ever met.
Oh, I love that. What's inspiring you like out in the world right now? Like, what are you seeing, whether it's like on Instagram, on TV, whatever it is, like what is just kind of percolating in your brain?
That's a good question, because I think like everything's like so oversaturated. It's like, I think we have like decision fatigue, all of us. It's intense. I mean, I'm always really inspired by my friends like personal style, like street style. I do look at runway. I do look at what's happening in the collections and get inspired there. I mean, I always love what Prada and Miu Miu are doing. I think, there's definitely designers who I think are doing important and interesting work. I've been working with Stella McCartney a bunch the past couple years, and just her whole messaging behind, you know, how she develops fabrics and sustainability and not using fur. And the most recent campaign I worked on is all about promoting save what you love and not using fur and feathers, specifically feathers, because there's so many designers that use feathers. And so, yeah, I think, you know, going back to this idea of like, in terms of inspiration for fashion, you know, as, you know, someone consuming that, you know, we have like choices to make. And so I do really try to shop vintage as much as possible. In the arts, I mean, I'm definitely inspired by music, and there's an artist, Nala Sinefro, who has an album that came out recently, who I think is incredible. And she did the soundtrack for Benny Safdie's new movie that's coming out that I worked on, The Smashing Machine. And yeah, she's incredible and very like ethereal. I think I'm inspired by so many different things. I like to think that like inspiration for projects I work on is kind of like a mashup. It's like, you know,
it's
like
a true mood board.
I'm borrowing from like lots of different places, and then it kind of like comes together and then hopefully feels fresh.
Looking forward for you. What is the next world that you want to costume design? Like, what's on your bucket list?
Ooh, I'm doing a film with director Panos Cosmatos, who did a film called Mandy that I absolutely loved, with Nicolas Cage. It's like a horror film, and he is making a film. It's like a early 80s vampire film with Kristen Stewart and Oscar Isaacs, but it's like world building for sure. Yeah,
die for him.
Yeah, and he's a producer on it as well, and I'm really excited about that. I've already been in creative talks with Panos about like what we're gonna do. Yeah, just it's like almost like it has sci-fi elements in a way, where like it's not like a straight vampire genre. Hopefully it'll be something, I know it will be something people haven't seen before, and just to be able to like dream up those costumes is going to be really fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Amazing to hear about your career, truly. Like,
thank you.
So great to have you here, and I can't wait to share this with everyone
in person.
Yeah. Me too. Yay. Thank you.